Hotep, peace, greetings, all that good stuff. What I want to talk about today, well, before I get into that real quick, to get the announcement stuff out of the way, I like to do that now in the beginning of the videos because I was doing it towards the end. But I'm not sure if everybody was getting those announcements. This past Saturday's drumming on the beach was postponed due to the fact we have or are having a lot of rainy weather the last several days. So we pushed that up till June 17th. So we will be doing that Saturday, June 17th, out at Pompano Beach in North Fort Lauderdale. Drumming on the beach. If you're in the area, feel free to come. You can bring anybody you want, friends, family. It's an open event. That starts at 7:30 p.m. Until 10 o'clock. The following week are the two big events on Friday, June 23rd. We will be doing the invocation of the Holy Death Ritual. This will start at 7:30 p.m. at Cultural Expressions in Hollywood, Florida. The next day at Cultural Expressions also on Saturday, June 24th, we will be doing a class, Deconstruction and Destruction and Reconstruction, or Destruction and Deconstruction. I will be doing a whole presentation on how that applies to spiritually and working this particular path of black magic. So those events are on the 23rd and the 24th. If you would like any information to those events, you can email me at khnum19@gmail.com. Also, if you are interested in a consultation, I'd like to get that out of the way so you don't have to email me and ask me how it works. Basically, a consultation lasts up until 1 hour. I charge $50 to do it. It can be paid for either PayPal or Square. It can be done over any social media. I prefer Skype or Google Hangouts, which is the quickest and the most accurate and the best in my opinion. If you can get to me in person, it can be done in person. I request you at least give me a 2-day notice and pay 24 hours before we do the consultation. The consultation, and I like to present it for what it is. It's not going to some spiritual guru telling you that you got to do a bunch of shit and draining you of your money. That's not what it's about. The consultation basically is a free-for-all. You can dictate, how that consultation goes, what you want to talk about. I will communicate to you whatever energy, spirits, archetypes come through, and information that is relayed that's beneficial for you to know. I do consultations where people want to get started on working this path. If that's where you're at, how to set up certain altars, work with certain archetypes, or if you're already on the path and you just want to enhance your information or maybe tap into quote unquote the spirit world, that can be done also. Some people get a consultation and they just have a list of questions that they want answered, and that's fine too. So basically the consultation, it's a dialogue and a free-for-all. There really is no set structure to it. We kind of just flow with it, or I kind of flow with it, depending whatever energy that we're dealing with at the time. So that's how the consultation works. If you are interested in setting up a date and a time, you can email me. Same email address, khnum19@gmail.com. Again, that's khnum19@gmail.com. khnum19@gmail.com for information on that or any of the aforementioned events. All right. Excuse me. Having gotten that out of the way, what I wanted to talk about today. Right now, the last several days here in South Florida, the Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, has been a lot of rain. Those that work black magic, for an example, it's a good energy for the deity Set per se. Because one aspect of activating the Set type of energy is doing ritual workings in swampy, watery areas. So it's when you're in tune with working certain magical practices, it incites or ignites a certain type of spiritual energy to work with. So what it sparked me and had me thinking about the last couple of days is casting spells, working black magic and the effect of the planetary influences. And candle burning especially, because one, as I've mentioned before in previous classes and videos over the years, is candle burning. Candle burning magic, or candle magic, to me is a very effective, it's a very simple method to achieve and get great results. Though again, as we say on this path, there are many different spiritual practices and paths that one can bring into their magical practice or their spiritual system as they're developing and creating their own path. But one thing that I do consistently is candle burning or candle magic. For the most part, the reason why, the fact that I say it's very simple and effective, is because most of it is fueled by the mind, the subconscious mind. It's working, obviously, for those that are familiar and may not be, it's working with colors, vibrations, and fueling your intent and knowing how to work with certain energies as far as, let's say per se, the planetary influences, the influence of the moon on this planet. And what I want to talk about, the importance of it or lack thereof. Now, bottom line is this: you can work any magical ritual, working under any planetary sign, influence, or energy. Now, some might hear that and go, "No, that's not possible." It is, but it doesn't work for everybody. You have to be, to me, seasoned to a certain extent, because the question that always arises, let's use the influence of the moon and the planetary influence of the moon. Some people who I know are not as disciplined, or maybe not as spiritually in tune, are susceptible and more affected by these planetary influences. Let me give you an example. Right now, at the filming of this video, today, June 5th, 2017, the moon is in the planetary influence of Scorpio. And anybody that's familiar with the Scorpio astrological sign knows that this is not a good sign to cast spells. And I'm going to talk about that. What is casting a spell? Cast spells, working magic, or trying to get a specific or crucial outcome. It's a stagnated sign. It's still in a sense, but it's very emotional. So there's a lot of energy in the Scorpio influence. And if you are an emotional person, per se, and your hormones and your moods are constantly up and down, and you get very emotional quick, let's per se angry, this is not a good time for you to work particular spells and magical rituals. It's a good time to think about and ponder them, but not to really carry them out, because your own energy can backfire on you. Now, if you're a person that is able to overcome all that and have really disciplined yourself from the emotional aspect of it, okay, and you're not as affected, well, that's a different story, but that don't apply to everybody. So I'm going to speak on both aspects of it. Personally, me, and again, I can only speak for me, how I see it and tie it in. I'm at the point where I can work a spell or a ritual, and again, we're talking about candle magic, regardless of the astrological sign. But what I also notice is, if I am doing a spell or ritual in conjunction with the proper sign, waxing or waning of the moon per se, the energies are a little bit more intensified. So what I'm saying is, it's not that it's mandatory, but you're going to find out as you become more experienced, when you do work in conjunction with the astrological signs and the planetary influences, it does enhance your spell and give your spell a little bit more energy. But the results in the spell can be carried out because really it centers around the individual and how powerful their mind is and how strongly that they're fueling the intent of the ritual that they're carrying out. Because as we know with candle magic and candle burning, you're using a various different systems. You're using different oils to charge your candles that serve purposes or particular purposes that you're burning the candles for. But as you're charging those candles, let's say with your oils that you've made, oils that you've picked out for your particular rituals, when you are actually charging it and fueling it with that intent mentally is the key critical point of the ritual. Is the mind focused on exactly what you're setting out to do, to get the results that you're setting out to accomplish? The mind has to be in a certain state. It has to be focused. And you really need to have that just pure vision or visual of what you're trying to accomplish when you're charging the candles. And that's why I like candle magic, because there's not a lot of external extravagant stuff. Because remember, when you're doing rituals, whether you're working with archetypes, candles, or any other ritualistic tools, those are just implements that enhance the ritual. Remember, the key on this path in working black magic is you. You are the focal point. You are the actual centerpiece of the ritual. And as I've said before, when you're, again, carrying out a ritual working with archetypes, at some point when you're invoking the energy of a particular archetype or deity, at some point in that ritual, you should be making the intent or the steps to progress embodying what that archetype represents. If you're not doing that, then you're still externally worshiping. Because if you go into a ritual per se, because you can combine both. You can, do a candle magic ritual and dress a candle to invoke the energy of a specific deity or archetype. You need to be going into that ritual with the intent of embodying what that archetype represents. So you become that archetype, not hoping that or looking at the ritual as if this archetype is going to come from somewhere out of the sky or some mystical abode and bring you assistance. Then we're back to external worship and worshiping things, and then we're taking a step back and we're back again indulging in religious concept and religious practices. Now, when you hear the term spells, I know people, for maybe newer people, I'm not talking about people that are on this path, practice these spiritual systems because they're familiar with the terms. When people hear the word rituals and spells, first thing, obviously, to people that may not be familiar, that comes to mind, their mind's going to fluctuate in their perception of what they think is evil. Okay? So when I say spells, I'm not just... When I'm saying a spell, that doesn't mean a spell you're casting on somebody to harm them. Though there are rituals and magic for that, and one is in the right frame or in the right when they're being attacked or they're being harmed. Believe me, and as I've talked about this before in the past, and it can be ugly. You can work effective black magic. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. If you are in the right and you are abiding by the laws of nature and the laws of the universe, and I should say the multiverses, because we know there's multiple universes. When we think about existence, there's really no boundary and no time frame on it. But when you're working with the spiritual laws that govern the universe, and you're working in accord with them, and when one has the ability to access certain energies, yes, catastrophic stuff can be done. But a true black magician would only go that route, he or she, when they're in a situation where it's drastic or something needs to be done. Now, you can cast spells to control or gain the upper hand in certain situations, be it people or scenarios, but there's a way to go about doing it. So you can cast spells to enhance your finances. You can cast spells to improve a relationship or a marriage. You can cast spells to bring healing energy and peace in the home, etc. So when you hear the word spells and rituals and candle magic, most people think of voodoo and the negative aspect of it, and devil worship, the negative Hollywood movie, media, internet aspect of it. That's not what we're talking about. A true magician is one that is able to manipulate the subconscious mind and manipulate the elements. This is what it's about. This is what the science of working this spiritual system really evolves around and what it's about. So I got to thinking with the weather, I do, in my honest opinion, based on experience, and again, everybody's going to be different on this. Everybody's going to have their own perspective, especially if you're somebody that's been on this path and you do have experience and you've been traveling, you might have a different perspective on it. I've found out, depending on what I have going on and what I'm going through and what I'm dealing with and what's going on at that time in my life, has an effect of how I carry out rituals, how I feel, when I want to carry out the rituals, and for what purposes. Because I listen to that inner voice. Never go against that inner voice. Some will call it your conscious, some will call it your inner being, whatever you want to call the shit, whatever, it's irrelevant. Never go against that, because that is always going to push you in the right direction. There'll be periods, like as of now, the last couple weeks, until probably today, I hadn't done much on a spiritual level, because it was a time for resting and reflection and healing, personal healing. So sometimes you gotta go by that. Listen to that inner voice that's guiding you, because there has to be that personal balancement for you, because your balancement system isn't going to be the same, quote unquote, as the next person. So I found myself where there might be periods, months upon months, where I'm doing consistent work. There might be periods where I stop for several days and take a break, or a period recently where I haven't done nothing for the last couple of weeks because of the way I was feeling physically. Now, the weather, nature, the planetary influences, yes, when one is able to tap into the vibration and frequencies of it and use that to their advantage, not use it as a system. For an example, if you take a candle magic or candle burning book and just go religiously by what it says, only do this on that day, etc., etc. No, that's bullshit, because then again, you're back systematically to another form of religion. You should take that information, compute it all together in your mind, and be able to graft what works best for you. Because I've done rituals, quote unquote, where most candle magic books will say it's not productive to do it, and gotten great results. I'm more or less focused, the banishing and the waxing and the waning. I don't really look at that or go by that strictly or exclusively. But I do know my spiritually, mentally, emotionally, I'm more in tune with the planetary aspects of it. Like, I feel the Scorpio influence. I know when it's Scorpio. I can sense it when it's coming on. One of my sons is a Libra, right at the cutoff of Scorpio. My other son is a Scorpio. And I can detect part of when that energy is coming in to the influence, or coming into the influence of it, is by monitoring him and watching his behavior. And I feel it. So I do have an effect. You're going to find out when you spiritually work magic, your spiritual senses are heightened to some of these energies and influences. So rather than be controlled by them, you can take those energies and influences and make them work for you. Again, what I like to do is Scorpio influence, burn pink, blue, yellow, colors that send out healing energies, that send out positive vibrations and frequencies, and just focus in that particular ritual on bringing healing energy into the home and amongst the family that lives in the home, etc. That is a spiritual working that's good to carry out under the Scorpio influence, to make sure people's mindsets, tempers, attitudes, and mentalities stay balanced and in check. It's good to educate yourself on this when carrying out rituals, because it also can prep the mind subconsciously, and as I said earlier, give power to the ritual. But again, don't lose sight of the fact that you are the central focal point of the ritual. I liken it, to the Freemasonic symbology. The rough ashlar in the lodge is a representation of you, because you enter the Masonic lodge, a rough ashlar, with things to perfect about yourself. Your goal is to become that smooth ashlar. You see both of them in the East in the Masonic lodge, the rough and the smooth ashlar. Well, by the time you're raised up to a master mason or become a master, you are now that smooth ashlar that has perfected himself, or herself, we should say too. That's also should be liking, or that a way of thinking or spiritual system should be applied to any ritual you carry out. Never lose sight. You are the focal point of the ritual. You become the ritual. Never go into the ritual, as I said earlier, and focusing on external things or external objects to come to your assistance. That's not going to happen. You can create the illusion of it, but it's not going to happen. That's what we call worshiping. And worshiping something that is not factual, and that it's worshiping, something that does not exist or is not a reality. So that's critical in understanding. So when, again, we're working rituals and different aspects of magic and casting spells, we're manipulating the element, we're manipulating the power of our subconscious mind to work beneficial for us. Now, which brings us to another important area that we've talked about in the past, which all is hinged upon the fact, when we say a greater black magic working, tapping into your subjective mind or your subjective realm. This is the part of our consciousness, or our psyche, or our mental makeup, where we bring things into existence by the thought power that we possess. Meaning, you conjure up some of the most normal and bizarre things, let's per se, in a dream state. Now, your mind tapped into some level of consciousness, no matter how bizarre it might seem, whatever the experience was, whatever is it you might see, that is a reality to you because you manifested it on your subjective realm. You may not have a full explanation for it, but you manifested it on your subjective realm. Well, it's the same thing when you're going into a particular ritual. When we say have a strong visualization, you want to tap into that subjective realm and play out how the scenario is going to work out, and then bring that into fruition on your objective realm, or the physical. Now, I want to be crystal clear in this. Here's another aspect where people get lost, and I've talked about this in some videos in the past. People falsely think, and again, I want to stress this, because this path is not about creating false illusions, fake promises. We use the term, it's about doing the work, which fucking means what it says. You have to literally put work in to get results. Now, I'm bringing that up because you'll get some people that think all they need to do is do some ritual and finish, and that's it, they're done. That everything's just going to shape and mold itself into what they want. And then when they do it once, maybe twice, and the shit don't pan out, they get frustrated and they say, oh shit, it's not working. I did this ritual, why is it not working? If you understand how these energies work, and the vibration and the frequencies of how they work, some of those vibrations and frequencies need to be drawn down stronger in certain situations as opposed to other situations. So you might have to plug at something several times before you get a result, because it needs an X amount of energy, vibration, and frequency that needs to be put towards it. So if it's a complex situation, and you say you've done it once, twice, 3 times, you're not getting results, well, something is telling you that you still need to keep plugging away at it, because you're going to find out the more you plug away at it, the more you plug out away at it, the results are going to be even greater. Now, there are some times where, yes, because the situation didn't call for as much intense energy or conjuring up certain energy to to get results from a situation, you might do something once and get the results right away. And that happens a lot. But people never calculate all the times or the amounts of times that they get the success. They only focus on the failures. Well, that should be a wake-up call if you're working at something and you've tried it several times and you're not quite getting the results that you said. That's bringing to your attention that area or aspect of your life needs critical work. So you keep plugging away at it. You can try a multitude of different things. It's not going to be right until you're right in that area, because what's happening is if you say, well, I'm trying to repair maybe say a family relationship between a father and a daughter, or a father and a son, or a brother and a sister that are not talking or have been arguing or at odds and ain't speaking to each other. Not only you might be dealing with the conflict that's between you and the person directly, there might be governing factors outside of that you have to work on too. So gather your information, get your data, and know specifically what to target and work on. And trust me, once you do and make that breakthrough, you're gonna get the results. But you can't fucking get frustrated because you did it once or twice and you don't get no results. Then sometimes it might be calling for drastic measures, because there's people that are doing what we call LBM, or lesser black magic workings, which is different from a greater black magic working. Sometimes it calls for maybe more intense methods or different systems, because you might be using a spiritual system that may be too laid back, that may not be strong enough or powerful enough at the moment to get the desired results that you're trying to achieve. Now, one thing I've learned from being a young person, immature, I say, on a mental level, to somebody now, I've learned when working these spiritual systems, and especially with finances, I've mentioned this before, if you petition what you need, you'll get the results right away. When you start asking for shit you don't need, it tends to create more frustration. So you should be focusing when you're working in your magic on all levels, whether it's spiritually, mentally, emotionally, for finances and love, sexually, working sex magic. Maybe you want to attain your most intense sexual desires. Maybe you want to experience a threesome. Maybe you want to experience some maybe off the wall shit. When you focus on it, and believe me, you could tie the sex magic thing into these rituals. When you focus on it and you're clear on your intent, the key and importance of what happens is, if you work in all these areas, success, again, finances, your sex life, love, money, overall success, all these things, if you look for harmony in all those areas, it tends to be a lot more effective, and you tend to get a lot more results. So I more or less work for harmony in all those areas. When people tend, and I've seen this from experience, not just within myself, but working with clients over the years, working with people over the years, and just talking with people over the years that I know. When you go to the extreme in one area and focus exclusively on that, and it's based on pure gluttony and greed, that tends to create problems. Now, let me give you an example, because I've seen this work two ways. I've seen somebody intently focus on one area, let's say per se, and it brought so much intense results that they weren't prepared to handle it. And then it caused chaos that they were not ready to bring into order in other aspects of their life. So that's important to understand. So when you're intently and aggressively pursuing something, regardless of what it is, finances, etc., make sure you're not neglecting other aspects. Let's say per se that might need more attention. Now, you may not think so, because you're vibrating on the pure emotional. Now, indulgence is part of this path, but indulgence with discipline. You should indulge to experience, so you can draw the proper conclusions to what's right and wrong for you. But when you go with reckless abandonment and pure indulgence with no discipline, that creates problems. So I found the most effective way, and I use that term, ask for what you need. Because sometimes what you need and what you want is two different things. And we've talked about that several times. So, it's the old adage, be careful what you ask for, and make sure what you're asking for you are prepared to receive. Because some people will, again, they'll work sex magic and say they want to obtain all these sexual desires, and it opens a porthole. We use the term Pandora's box. And whether you're a guy and then you see you're being bombarded with pussy left and right, or vice versa for a female, and you're not ready to handle it, and it starts to take from you emotionally, and physically, and mentally, and it could affect other areas. Or you're asking for something, but are you prepared to receive the energy, and can you deal with the energy? So you have to be careful, because obtaining something and fulfilling it and being controlled by it is two different things. If you go into the 7 Faces of Darkness, and there's spells and rituals in there, 7 Faces of Darkness by Don Webb, there's spiritual rituals in there for sex magic. And I want to point out something that Don Webb says in that book. If not carried out correctly, based on a lot of things that I just mentioned, really what it does is just make you one horny individual, which can affect other areas of your life if you don't have it under control, I'm saying. Naturally, you might have a high sex drive, but if you don't have it under control, it can create problems. And that's what I mean. And you could be bringing to you an influx of energies that you think you're prepared for, but you're really not prepared for. It could be the same thing working with finances. It could be the same thing in various other avenues. So that's not exclusive to one particular area or system. So that's important to understand. It's important to know. So energies, vibrations, frequencies, they are real. They exist. You are influenced by them, the planetary influences, these vibrations and frequencies that we talk about, consciously and unconsciously. There are some that on the surface you are very aware of. But there's energies and influences that are constantly affecting you that you're not conscious of. That sometimes you have to go into some form of meditation, inner concentration, to acknowledge and to get the feel for. And again, as you get more experience and you travel down this path, it starts to become second nature. You just start tapping into it without having to do very much. So this is important. Again, it's just my opinion. Other people, my perspective. I think there's two aspects to this. Planning and timing can be effective for certain rituals. My planning and timing now, I go just by feel. My most effective results are on the fly, without a lot of planning, because I just get a certain feel, a certain vibration, whereas I might just be sitting around and didn't make any plans to put anything into practice, and boom, all of a sudden I just get this urge to just carry something out, and I do it, and it's effective. That's still tapping into the vibrations, the frequencies, and the energies, and how they affect you. Whereas some people need to be they need to pre-plan a little more, need to be a little bit more structured, unfortunately. I don't say unfortunately in a bad way. That might be a person that maybe is a little bit fresher on the path. Again, I could only speak from my own experiences. I can't speak for anybody else. I find magic on the fly out of pure chaos is the most effective for myself. There will be times where I do pre-plan stuff ahead, but not many. I found as I've become more experienced, it's not really necessary. I find more the things I plan the most now or more so when we're doing rituals in a group or a collective setting, when there's multiple people there, because there needs to be some organization to that, gathering, timing, etc. So more so, I will do it for the collective, but you're going to find as you become experienced, working on an individual level, totally different. And it's going to vary. Some people like to stay a little more structured because you might get better results from that. I know there's some people on the flip side that just going in on the fly at a pure chaos doesn't necessarily work for them all the time. But I do think everybody should experience it at one time or the other, because it'll take you out of your safe element when you work out of that pure chaos, that pure instinct. But again, remember, this path is about, it's a path of self-mastery. It's a path about creating your own spiritual path and systems that work for you. So you'll figure that out as you go along, and don't worry about duplicating or copying anybody else's methodology or system or the way they do things, because that's irrelevant. And it's not something you want to do, because then again we're back to following something or somebody. We're back to pure structure, which quote unquote is again another form of religion, regardless of how you present it, regardless of how you sugarcoat it. And you don't want that on this path, because that on this path stunts your growth. And this is a constant path of evolution and change and evolving, and you want that. You want that on a daily basis, because I always tell people, after you've been in this path for X amount of time, a year, 2 years, whatever or more, always do some reflection on yourself. And what I mean by that is, go and, have I made improvements from a year ago, 2 years ago, to 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Reflect back on, say you came in 5, 10, 15 years ago to today. Can you reflect and visualize that and see that growth and that change within yourself that's made you evolve and become, 100% better person, to become that God or that deity that you've been searching for? If you can make that declaration and statement to yourself, and you only need to prove it to yourself, then keep doing what you're doing. But if you've been on this path and you reflect back and you say, man, I haven't really seen much change, just a little bit, there's something wrong. Or maybe you haven't seen any change at all and there's something seriously wrong. Because remember, this path will bring to the surface the realization there's nobody to blame for your success or your failures but you. So it's great when you have the success. You take all the credit for it. I'm a great person. I have all the success. But when you fail, then it's like you see people get stumped, and they're looking for something but themselves to take credit and responsibility. No, there's something not right with you. There's something wrong with you in the sense you're not doing something right. You're not focusing on the correct areas about yourself that need to be improved. That's what I was saying earlier. You might be wanting to focus on fulfilling your sexual desires, but your finances is all fucked up, or your family life is all jacked up. You got issues you need to correct and mend there, or you got personal characteristics about yourself you need to work on, terrible temper, etc. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. So that's why I've said before, from day one, when you come into this path, you need to do a personal inventory of yourself. You understand, do a stock of yourself from as far back as you can remember to the present. Only you know what you need. Nobody else knows that for you. So when you are real with yourself on what you need, then you can go to work in those areas. And this is why you always hear me say over and over, what you want and what you need are two different things. Because we confuse what we want with what we need. And that gets us fucked up a lot of the times. So, yeah, I mean, be wise in your decisions when working those paths. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about, casting spells, working magic, the planetary influences, and vibrations and frequencies and energies and all those things. They're all connected. They all play a part. And it takes time. It takes time to educate yourself. It's not something you're going to figure out in 1 or 2 sit-downs. It does take experimenting. You're going to experiment and you're going to fuck up, and that's okay. Because as long as you learn from your fuck-ups, that makes you better, makes you more educated, makes you more knowledgeable. But when you keep repeating your fuck-ups, then there's something wrong. You're not taking heed, to information that's being provided for you. You understand? So you should always learn from mistakes, as long as you don't keep repeating them. But the only way you learn in anything in life is fucking up here and there. And you will make mistakes. You will carry things out that are not productive, or you will carry something out that can be completely disastrous, and that's okay too. You just learn from it, and you get the data from it and the information from it that you can utilize moving forward and say, okay, I remember this from last time. This is how I can improve upon it and make it work for me. Not repeat it and do the same shit over and over and then have the same result and the same problem. And I've seen that happen a lot, unfortunately, with some people. So anyway, hope this put some things into perspective for people listening. That's pretty much what I got for you this week. Again, Drumming on the Beach, June 17th, Pompano Beach, North Fort Lauderdale, 7:30 to 10 o'clock. All are invited. June 23rd, Invocation of the Holy Death, black attire only, which simply means a black robe, or if you're a female, you don't have a black robe, black dress, black slacks, a blouse. If you're a man, don't have a black robe, black shirt, black pants, no jeans, no t-shirts, no shorts. Real simple rule. This is a part of one of the degrees or rituals of the Order of Chaos and Darkness. We did the initiation ritual of that 2 months ago. And we're taking people through this order that we have created based on the various different experiences that we've been through, and we want to share these experiences with people that want to experience them for themselves. That'll be on the 23rd. We'll be doing a class on the 24th, 7:30 p.m. Both events at Cultural Expressions in Hollywood, Florida. Both events start 7:30 p.m. If you would like the flyer to those events and information, you can email me at khnum19@gmail.com. Same thing for consultations. If you want to set up a consultation, you can hit me up at that same email address, khnum19@gmail.com, khnum19@gmail.com. That is all I got for you this week. I'm going to sign off, and we'll see you people next week. Peace.